Zilean, the Chronokeeper. Picture a man standing in the middle of a city that doesn't exist anymore, watching the same explosion over and over every single day, unable to stop it. That's Zilean. He's the Chronokeeper of Runeterra, a mage so powerful he ripped open the fabric of time itself, and the cost broke him in ways no sword ever could. His home city of Ikothia was consumed by the void centuries ago, and Zilean was there when it happened. He felt time shatter around him, and instead of dying with everyone else, he got stuck. Unstuck, actually. Drifting through moments past and future with no anchor to the present. Most people think of Zilean as that support champion who hits you with a golden clock and saves your teammate from dying. That's true. But zoom out on the lore and you find something way darker. The reason Zilean can reverse death, in-game and in the story, is because he's been desperately trying to reverse one specific death for hundreds of years. The death of every person in Ikothia. He can almost reach it. He can almost change it. But something always stops him from rewriting that moment. It's like being 1 second away from saving everyone you love, forever. Here's what makes this even heavier. Zilean isn't just sad about what happened. He's responsible. It was the mages of Ikothia, his people, who summoned the void in the first place, thinking they could use it as a weapon against Shurima. They were wrong. And Zilean has carried that guilt across centuries of fractured time, searching every possible future for a version where Ikothia survives. He hasn't found it. Not yet. His passive in-game is called Time in a Bottle. He stores experience and shares it with teammates. Think about that through the lens of his lore. A man who can't save his own past, giving pieces of time to others so they can grow stronger. It's almost poetic in a painful way. He offers the one thing he has too much of, and can never use for himself. What Zilean represents in this list isn't just a champion with a resurrection ultimate. He represents the unbearable side of surviving. Most of us think cheating death is a win. Zilean is proof it can be the longest punishment on the roster. He outlived everyone he loved. He watched history break. And he keeps going, not because he's okay with it, but because stopping means giving up on that one impossible fix. That's the cruel trick time plays. You can live forever and still lose everything. Sion, the undead juggernaut. Most undead champions in League are tragic. They lost something. They crave something. They haunt the world like a bad memory. Sion is different. Sion is a war machine that death could not contain, and the most disturbing part isn't what he became. It's what Noxus made him into. He was already one of the most feared soldiers in Noxian history when he was alive. A giant of a man who once strangled a Dalmatian king to death with his bare hands and used the skull as a weapon on the walk home. When Sion finally died in battle, Noxus didn't mourn him. They got to work. Noxian dark mages spent years trying to bring Sion back. Not to honor him, but to weaponize him. They wanted a soldier who couldn't be killed again. What they got was something they could barely control. The resurrected Sion has no memory of who he was. He doesn't recognize allies, he doesn't take orders easily, he just feels this massive, consuming rage. And he walks toward it. Early on, entire Noxian units had to be deployed just to point him in the right direction, before he leveled the wrong city. Think about the gap between what Noxus wanted and what they got. They wanted an obedient super soldier. They got a natural disaster in armor. His in-game passive is literally called Glory and Death. When Sion dies, he gets back up, regenerates health, and keeps fighting for a few more seconds. That's not flavor text. That's the entire point of his existence. Death is a speed bump for Sion, an inconvenience, a short nap between moments of destruction. What makes Sion's story land differently from every other undead champion is the total loss of self. Zilean remembers everything, painfully. Sion remembers nothing. He was a proud, brutal legend in life, a man whose name made armies hesitate. Now he's a hollow engine of rage that his own empire fears to fully unleash. There's no consciousness cheating death here. The person who cheated death and the person walking around are two completely different beings. Noxus got exactly what they built, a champion who cannot be stopped, a weapon that doesn't negotiate, a body that refuses to stay dead, and a mind that was left behind somewhere in the grave. The lore doesn't give Sion a redemption arc. It doesn't give him a moment of clarity or a flicker of the man he used to be. He is just force, moving forward, forever. Some things that cheat death don't come back whole. Kindred, the Eternal Hunters. What if death wasn't a door you walked through, but two figures that had been following you your entire life, waiting patiently for the right moment. That's Kindred. Not one being, but two. Lamb and Wolf, working together as the eternal embodiment of death in Runeterra. Lamb is calm, gentle, almost kind. Wolf is hunger and chaos and the thrill of the chase. Together they are the inevitability that every living thing in this world is moving toward, whether they know it or not. But here's the twist that puts Kindred on this list. There is one person who ran from them, and got away with it, for a while. The legend inside Kindred's lore talks about a man who refused to be caught. Wolf wanted to chase him. Lamb said no, that some deaths should come gently, not be hunted down. That disagreement between the two is the crack in the mythology. It means death itself isn't perfectly unified. It argues. It hesitates. And in that hesitation, someone bought themselves more time than they were supposed to have. The story doesn't name him. It doesn't need to. Because the point is that the gap exists, and every champion on this list has, in some way, fallen through it. What makes Kindred genuinely unsettling isn't their power. It's their patience. They don't rush. They don't get angry when someone delays the inevitable. Lamb simply marks her targets. And Wolf knows they'll get there eventually. Their in-game kit reflects this perfectly. Kindred marks enemies, and those marks stack up pressure over time. The longer a target avoids them, the worse it gets. It's the same feeling as knowing something is coming and not being able to stop it, like a test you didn't study for, except the test is your final moment. There's also something poetic about the way Kindred handles champions who do cheat death. Their ultimate, Lamb's Respite, actually creates a zone where nobody can die. For a few seconds, the ground beneath a team becomes sacred, even enemies. Kindred, the living concept of death, chooses to pause it. That's not weakness. That's Lamb overruling Wolf. It's the gentle side of death saying, not yet. And that might be the most powerful thing on this entire list. Not a resurrection, not a second life, but death itself choosing to look away. Kindred reminds every other champion here that cheating death isn't really about being stronger than it. It's about catching death on a day when Lamb is in charge. Because when Wolf gets the call instead, nobody runs far enough. Death always gets the last word. Lamb just lets you finish your sentence first. If you're enjoying this, drop a comment telling us which champion you think cheated death the hardest, and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the list. Karthus the Deathsinger. Imagine you're 12 years old and you become obsessed with one idea. Not a sport, not a game, but death itself. Not in a scary way, in a fascinated way. Like you've looked at the thing everyone else runs from and thought, that's the most honest thing in the world. That's Karthus as a kid. He grew up in the Shadow Isles region's lore as someone who was never afraid of dying. He was drawn to it. While other children learned trades and played in the streets, Karthus was wandering toward the darkest, most death-soaked corners of the world he could find, listening for something on the other side. He didn't want to kill people. That's the part most players miss. Karthus genuinely believes death is a gift, a release from the pain and noise of living. He sees himself as a guide, a ferryman, someone who helps the living cross over into what he thinks is a better, quieter existence. The problem is that most people didn't ask for that service, and Karthus, deep in his conviction, stopped caring whether they wanted it or not. His ult hitting you from across the map isn't aggression in his mind. It's him doing you a favor you didn't know you needed. The turning point in his story is the moment he stops just believing in death and decides to become it. He walks willingly into the most cursed, death-saturated place in all of Runeterra, the Shadow Isles, and lets it take him. Not because he was forced, not because he was dying from illness. He just decided the boundary between life and death was the only place worth living. So, he crossed it, which twists and corrupts everything it touches, turned him into the Deathsinger, a lich wrapped in robes floating through battlefields, singing. Here's the wild contrast. Every other champion on this list fought death, ran from death, or had death forced on them. Karthus applied. He submitted a request. He walked up to the door and knocked, and death opened it. That's a different kind of cheating death entirely. He didn't survive it. He merged with it. He became a version of existence that sits right on the line. Not fully alive, not gone, permanently in the threshold he always wanted to reach. His passive in-game is called Death Defied. When Karthus dies, he keeps casting spells for 7 more seconds. Even in death, the music doesn't stop. Even the game acknowledges it. This champion does not go quietly. He didn't cheat death. He became its favorite student. Aatrox the Darkin Blade. If someone told you that surviving was actually the worst thing that could happen to you, would you believe them? Most people wouldn't. Survival feels like the win. It feels like the point. But Aatrox is living, or whatever he is, proof that sometimes the cruelest outcome isn't death. It's being denied it. Aatrox was once one of the Darkin, ancient warrior beings of immense power who fought to protect the world from a force that would have erased everything. They won that war, and their reward was imprisonment inside the very weapons they carried into battle. Sealed, conscious, unable to move, speak, or die, for thousands of years. Think about what that actually means. You fight the biggest battle in history, you win, and then you spend the next several millennia locked inside a sword, fully aware, with nothing but your own thoughts and your rage slowly building like pressure in a pipe that's never going to release. That's not survival, that's a sentence. Aatrox didn't cheat death. Death cheated him by refusing to show up. The thing he wanted most, the exit from that eternal prison, was the one thing he couldn't reach from inside a blade. When he finally gets free, by possessing the body of a warrior who picks up his sword, the damage is done. Aatrox is not the noble protector he once was. The imprisonment broke something fundamental. He doesn't want to save the world anymore. He wants to burn it down, destroy the aspects who sealed him, and find a way to die on his own terms. His entire post-release arc is a death wish with an army attached to it. Every fight he picks, every city he tears through, it's not conquest. It's him screaming into the void, looking for something powerful enough to finally finish the job. His in-game kit makes this visceral. Aatrox heals when he deals damage. He is mechanically built to refuse death, which is perfectly horrible because that's the last thing he wants. Even his own game design traps him in the loop. He fights, he almost dies, he comes back, he keeps fighting, over and over. The one thing he's searching for stays just out of reach. There's a version of the story where Aatrox is the hero, where surviving the war and enduring the prison makes him the greatest champion on the roster. But surviving without peace isn't strength. It's just pain with extra steps. The worst prison has no walls, just endless tomorrows you never asked for. Akshan the Rogue Sentinel. Picture your closest friend, the person who taught you everything, who believed in you before you believed in yourself, cut down by a villain while you were standing just close enough to almost save them. That image is where Akshan begins. His mentor, Shadia, was killed by a scoundrel, a term in Runeterra's lore for people who've made deals with dark forces and left a trail of ruined lives behind them. When a scoundrel dies, everyone they've killed comes back to life. That's the rule. That's the mechanic of Akshan's entire world. And the moment he understood that rule, everything changed. Because it meant Shadia wasn't gone. She was just waiting on the right death to unlock her return. So Akshan doesn't grieve the way most people do. He doesn't sit with it. He picks up the Absolver, a magical relic weapon his mentor left behind, and starts crossing names off a list. Every scoundrel he hunts isn't just a villain taken down. It's a key turning in a lock. Each death he delivers ripples backward through the chain of people that scoundrel killed, pulling them back from wherever the dead go. It's resurrection through justice. It's cheating death by proxy, not for himself, but for everyone a corrupt person dragged down with them. What makes Akshan fascinating in the context of this list is that he's the only one here who uses death as a tool for reversal rather than something to escape. Zilean tries to rewind time. Akshan works within the rules of death and finds the loophole. He doesn't break the system. He learns the system well enough to run it backwards. That's a different kind of clever. That's the kid who doesn't fight the test question. He reads the instructions twice and finds the shortcut everyone else missed. His in-game kit reflects this perfectly. His whole design rewards aggressive hunting. Go in, get the kill, get out stronger. Mechanically, he plays exactly like his lore. A mobile, scrappy rogue who turns every fight into a transaction. Give death something. Get life back in return. The thing that drives Akshan isn't rage or obsession. It's love. Simple, stubborn love for one person that refuses to accept the permanence of loss. And in a roster full of champions who survived terrible things, that might be the most human motivation of all. One bullet, one name, one step closer to bringing her home. Mordekaiser the Iron Revenant. Here's something most people don't realize about Mordekaiser. He hasn't cheated death once. He's done it 3 times. Each time he's been destroyed, killed, or sealed away, he finds a way back. And each time he comes back, he's angrier, smarter, and harder to stop than before. Most champions who return from death come back changed by the experience. Humbled, broken, haunted. Mordekaiser comes back having taken notes. He treats each death like a learning experience. A temporary setback to study and correct before the next attempt. That's not resilience. That's something much colder. His first life was as a warlord so brutal and so effective that the people of early Runeterra eventually found a way to kill him. Barely. But death wasn't a wall for Mordekaiser. It was a hallway. He spent his time in the afterlife, a place Runeterra calls the Death Realm, not suffering, but conquering. He fought the spirits there. He bent that plane of existence to his will. By the time anyone figured out he was building an empire on the other side of death, it was already too late to seal him away cleanly. His second and third deaths followed the same pattern. Gone for a while, back stronger, every single time. What separates Mordekaiser from every other champion on this list is intent. Zilean is trapped by death. Sion is used by others. Aatrox is tortured by survival. Mordekaiser treats the whole cycle like a career path. He dies, he dominates the realm he lands in. He claws his way back to the living world with more power than he left with. Death is not his enemy. It's his commute. He goes in, does the work, comes back with a promotion. His in-game ultimate traps an enemy champion in a 1v1 dimension with no escape, his personal death realm. That's not a metaphor. That's him showing you exactly what he does to everything that ends up in his territory. The realm belongs to him. The rules there are his rules. Cheating death for Mordekaiser eventually stopped being something he survived and one became something he administrated. The lore doesn't give you hope that someone will stop him permanently. Every coalition that's tried has bought time, not victory. He always finds the door back. He always remembers the way. Death is only permanent for people Mordekaiser hasn't conquered yet. Zed the Master of Shadows. What does it cost to survive something that should have killed you, when the price is paid by someone else without their permission? That question sits at the heart of Zed's entire story. He's the Master of Shadows, the founder of the Order of Shadow, one of the most dangerous assassins in Runeterra. On the surface, he looks like a straightforward villain. Black armor, shadow clones, ruthless efficiency. But the lore pulls back to reveal something more complicated. Zed didn't just cheat death through skill or power. He cheated it through a choice that destroyed the closest thing he had to a brother, and has been running from that shadow, literally ever since. Zed and Shen grew up together under the same master, a man named Kusho who led the Kinku Order, dedicated to keeping balance between the spirit world and the living one. When a monster called Jin threatened that balance, Kusho made a choice that Zed couldn't accept, sparing Jin instead of killing him, for reasons of strategy and patience. Zed saw that as weakness. He found a forbidden weapon, the Box of Shadows, and used it, knowing full well it would corrupt him. Knowing it would end his place in the Kinku, he did it anyway because he decided survival and victory mattered more than the rules around them. The shadow that saved him became the shadow that haunts him. The Box of Shadows doesn't just give power, but attaches a darkness to you that mirrors your worst self. Zed's shadow clone in-game isn't just a mechanic. In lore terms, it's a version of him that remembers every terrible choice, every line he crossed, every person he sacrificed to stay alive and stay winning. He can never fully separate from it. It goes where he goes. It does what he does. It is him, just without the justifications he tells himself. What makes Zed's entry on this list sting differently is that he didn't cheat death to protect someone else, like Akshan. He didn't stumble into it, like Zilean. He made a fully conscious trade. His integrity, his friendships, his place in the world he was trained to protect, in exchange for power and survival. And the game gave him a kit that forces him to keep making that same trade every single fight. Use the shadow, take the risk, go all in. The shadow never left, because he never really wanted it to. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next.